This is the I Heart My Life show. Welcome to the I Heart My Life show. It's Emily here, and I'm so excited for our special guest today. Her name is Deidre Sirianni, and she is here to talk to us all about crafting your story. If you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, a leader who wants to be able to have impact in the world and create shifts, big changes, and ultimately use their story to create transformation. So I'm excited to have this conversation. We've become friends in my peer mastermind, and I have to say I've learned so much from you already. You've been so supportive, and I'm just grateful to have you here so I can pick your brain even more.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. We're going to have so much fun.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your journey, because I know you've kind of been in the midst of a pivot, much like myself, and fine-tuning what you do and really understanding what your mastery truly is. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the story behind all of that.
Yeah. So about 7 years ago, I was standing in my kitchen and I was putting my fingers through my hair, as us ladies with long hair do sometimes. And I realized that something fell off. So I grabbed my phone and I raced to the bathroom. I put on camera mode and angled it on the back of my head with the mirror, trying to figure out like what's going on here. And I realized I had a bald spot that's about this big. So if you're just listening and you're not watching the video, it was a couple inches wide. And I started freaking out and I was like, how did this happen? How do I fix it? Clearly, the universe is trying to tell me something because it's going after my hair. So I go back to my kitchen and I sit down for a moment just to ground myself. And that's when I heard this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year. And then I had a flashback to about 5 years prior. The only other time I had ever really heard this voice speak to me, and I was outside and I had friends and family on both sides of me. My friend was playing the guitar and he was singing a song that goes, "It's beautiful, it's true." And I'm walking down the aisle. I have pink roses in my hand and I'm excited to marry the man that I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And that's when the same voice says, this just isn't going to work. And I had never heard this voice before. And I really did think I was doing what I was supposed to be doing on a soul level. So I shoved it down and I ignored it. And I said, I do. Now I'm sitting at my kitchen table and I'm like, I have 4 different types of autoimmune disease that the doctors can't seem to help me with. I had chronic pain in my neck and shoulders to the point where my massage therapist actually fired me. I didn't know they could do that, but she just couldn't help me anymore. And I had depression to the point of having a vision of ending my life. And the wild thing about it was, from the outside looking in, it looked like I had it all together. I was the happiest person everyone knew. But every single time I was around my husband, my entire body would contract. And he was always telling me who to be, how to be, what I can say, what I can't say, what I can wear, what I can't wear, who I can talk to, who I can't talk to. And I remember sitting there at my kitchen table and thinking to myself, like, could it be that this entire time, ever since I didn't listen to my soul when I walked down the aisle, that voice, that my soul has been speaking to me through these symptoms of disease, and I just haven't been listening. So I made a vow to myself in that moment 7 years ago that I was going to get radically honest with myself, that I was going to have courage to look at myself in the mirror and the decisions that I made when I didn't know what I know now. And I was going to take massive inspired action in my life. And that's what I did. And that brought me down the path of studying more with shamans, the healing work. And within just a few months of doing the internal work, I was able to heal myself of 3 of the 4 autoimmune diseases. My chronic pain was gone and my anxiety was gone. My depression was gone. And eventually I had the courage to leave an 8-year mentally and emotionally abusive relationship. So the question is, tell us about your pivot. Tell us about like how you got here. So I love to help people transform their trauma and their pain into their greatest gift for humanity. Right now, it's very much with the speaking, the storytelling, the getting on stage and sharing your message with the world and entrepreneurship. But every single thing in my business and my life has literally come from a trauma or a pivotal moment that I've transformed into a diamond for others. And that's a moment in time 7 years ago where I chose myself. I got out of an abusive relationship. I started to listen to my soul. I started to say yes to the things that scared me and put myself out there. And I feel like every so many years, it happens again. There's another pivotal moment. And it's like, oh, well, this is the newest version of me. I need to bring this forward now. And that's essentially how I got to this point of like, I want to help more people get their message and story out there, because story to me is the most transformational thing that we can like put out into the world when it's healed.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was amazing to hear. I didn't know the entire backstory. And it reminds me of this other guest that we had a few years ago. Her name is Kim Pendleton. And she had a similar situation where she was in a relationship and her body like literally started shutting down and she was having all these mysterious illnesses and didn't understand what was going on. And I've even had, someone recently tell me that she realized her panic attacks were because she wasn't being honest with herself. And I think it's so powerful for us to have these conversations, because how often are we looking for like the medical reason, or we're using the drug to try and make ourselves better, when we're not actually checking in and being like, okay, but what's actually going on here? What is my truth? And I love how your brand is called Radically Aligned, and you really help people to tap into that truth. And now it sounds like it's on a different level, or in a more specific way around their story and what their unique message is that they are born to share, that's going to help them serve the world.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that. I feel like every single thing that we go through, like I feel a responsibility to help people with it. And for me, I do believe on a very deep level that I wouldn't be here today if I didn't honor and listen to my soul. And I used to think this stuff was nonsense. Like I used to think, oh, the pain in your shoulder, what's going on in your knee or your neck or whatever symptoms are a sign that you're not listening. But the very first shaman that I studied with, over a decade ago was teaching this stuff. And as soon as I started to actually pay attention to the symptom and tune into what the message is, the symptom would go away as long as I would take that courageous action. And I feel like that's a part of all of our journey and evolution. We get out of alignment. We don't know what alignment is until we're really out of alignment or we get sick. And that's actually some of the beginning stages of human awakening, is your body, your soul, trying to essentially end your life because you're not living your life, so that you can wake up and make changes. And it starts as just like a whisper, a nudge. And then, when we're not listening over time, it can turn into disease in the body. So I'm really lucky that I was able to listen, but I was getting really sick.
That's a great way to think about it. And I'm curious to know, so you sound like, you're someone who's done the work, you've worked with some incredible people, you're tuned into yourself, you're able to hear, that guidance from God or whatever it is that you believe in. And what about the person who's like, okay, I'm having all these symptoms, but I don't know how to tune in. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not hearing any guidance. I don't know what changes to make. What would you say to them?
Yeah. So the first step is to look at the areas of your life where you don't feel comfortable being yourself. Where are the areas and places where you may be saying, oh, I can't say that thing. Oh, I shouldn't do that thing. Oh, I'm not safe to fill in the blank. Usually there's something in your life that you're ignoring, that you're shutting down, that you're numbing, that you're like, it's not safe to feel this, or it's not safe to bring this part of me out. And when we start to take these parts of ourselves and we put them offline, they start to go offline through disease and symptoms. So the second step would be to actually take a moment, tune into the symptom that you have, and ask yourself, what is the emotion that I feel? So if I'm feeling into, let's say, pain or something in my back, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to tune into my back for a moment. And if I were to give this pain an emotion, well, what is it? Oh, it feels like I'm blocking something. It feels like avoidance. Okay, well, what is the emotion of avoidance? Oh, I'm afraid. Okay, so when I feel into the feeling of being afraid that's showing up as pain in my back, our back typically is a manifestation of something in our subconscious mind that we're not dealing with, that we don't want to look at. It's trying to show up to get our attention. And so it's like, okay, if I know that, it's like, okay, so what am I afraid of right now? Okay, so I have a fear that the past is going to repeat itself in, let's say, this relationship that I'm in. So my back is getting really tight and I'm trying to control my partner. I'm trying to control this circumstance. And because of it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So just about getting honest with ourselves. Okay. So what is the message that this symptom has for me. Well, you need to cry or you need to get angry and process your past, because until you process what happened in the past, you're going to continue to be triggered in the present moment in this relationship. Okay, so I need to go to kickboxing. I need to yell. I need to do something, whatever your soul is telling you. And a lot of people will be like, oh, great. Like another person talking about spirituality, language of the soul. But if you sit for long enough, you will have something that comes forward. And when you listen to that, it clears. So with that, it's like, okay, so now that I've, expressed my anger, what message do you have for me? Okay, it's time for me to forgive. Okay, so what does that look like? Okay, I'm going to write a letter to that person. I'm going to burn it, whatever the thing is. And then as you continue to ask the symptom or the symptom of disease for the message from our higher self, it eventually turns into unconditional love, white light, bliss, connection. It always comes to one of the highest states of vibration. And then the symptom usually dissolves if you take action in your life. So your higher self will always give you a message. I talk about this in my book a little bit, and I think I have a free meditation on my YouTube channel specifically around the language of the soul if people want to go deeper with that. So that was a bite size.
Yeah, no, that's so great. And I'm just thinking, for people who are still a little bit skeptical, how do you know that it's like your higher self or your future self or your soul talking to you versus like your ego or your mom's influence coming in and somebody else's opinion? Like, how do you know it's actually your truth?
Yeah. So our soul communicates through symptoms. So the body is what's giving you a response. So dis-ease is disconnection from self. So anything that's manifesting in the body is a disconnection. As far as is it our mom? Is it our dad? Is it our higher self? Our higher self is usually the most blissed out version of who we are, and the parts of ourselves that maybe we're like, oh, I can't have that life. Oh, that's too amazing. Essentially, like if you tune into your highest self, it's like, if I could do, be, create, have anything I want, what would that be without limitations? That is usually our higher intelligence saying this is for us. Also, our higher self communicates through visions. So our soul communicates through symptoms and feelings like soul, goosebumps, all of those things, expansion, contraction, all of that, dis-ease, disconnection. And then our higher self communicates through visions. So if you've ever had a vision of yourself doing something, like for me, I don't know, like 8 years ago, I saw myself on stage in front of thousands of people. I had never spoken on stage before, but I was like, oh, this is a possibility of what's for me. But then with our higher self, we have to choose it, which is where our old programming, our fear, the things that our mom told us we can or can't do come in, and it blocks us. So if it feels like an expansion in the body, it's your soul saying yes. If you've had a vision, your higher self is giving you a message. And then if the contraction in an old story comes up after you've had the expansion or the vision, that's the old programming. That's your mother, that's your father, that's your childhood trying to block you from taking those necessary steps.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I've often thought about it as like it's a difference of expansion and contraction. When something feels expansive, it's your truth. It's you've tapped into like your next steps, your next level, your intuition.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I love that.
I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Before we get back to the interview, I wanted to share a little something I think you'll find valuable. If you're looking for more clarity on what you want in life or feel like something is holding you back, I've created a free Dream Life Guide just for you. It's a step-by-step resource to help you get clear on your goals and break through any mindset blocks that might be in the way. You can grab it at iheartmylife.com/guide. So head over to iheartmylife.com/guide to download it for free. All right, now back to the conversation. And so to shift gears a little bit, obviously we're hearing firsthand the power of story. Yours is incredible. Talk to us about why story matters, especially when it comes to leaders, business owners, and the types of clients that you work with.
I love that. So I was just in a call right before we jumped on here with someone that I'm working with, and she wants to help people in the space of health and wellness. And the biggest mistake that most people make when they're putting themselves out there and they want to be impactful or they want to grow their business or they want to make a bigger impact in the world and really have people resonate is they just go into teaching mode, or they're like, oh, I'm a TEDx speaker, I'm an author, I'm this, I'm that. And all of those things are cool, great, shows that you're capable at doing a good job, or you might be a great teacher. But at the end of the way, if you're not connecting with people, people aren't going to remember you. And if people don't remember you, then you're not really impactful and you're not really going to transform that many people's lives, and less people are going to want to work with you if you're not telling story. So story is one of the, most ancient ways that we communicate, right? If you go back in time, we have stories and we remember them. So the thing with stories is that when you tell a story, like I told at the beginning, my story, is you connect with people on a personal level that teaching can't. If I'm just teaching you, hey, so this is how you listen to your soul, you'd be like, oh, that was cool. She was an interesting person to listen to. And then you're going to forget about it. But if you're like, oh, her soul almost killed her, she lost a chunk of hair, she married the wrong guy, holy smoke, she's been through some stuff. She had a lot of reasons not to change her life, but she had a wake-up call. So you're going to remember me potentially from my story versus what I taught. And because the story is anchored there, you're going to trust me more and potentially like me or really dislike me. It could go either way, really.
Yeah. That's so good, because it's kind of like if you were telling your best friend or your spouse about this person, that's how you would describe it as well. Like you wouldn't go into like your specific framework or whatever, but you'd be like, oh my gosh, her soul almost killed her. She was bald. Like, and there'd be something probably within the story where it'd be like this thing that you resonate with and you can kind of see yourself in them.
Totally. And so the thing is, with that story specifically, it's not a story I wanted to tell. So what I mean by that is it's not a story that I'm like, I feel really proud to tell this story. This is not like my most glorified moment. Like I have so many other stories that I look so much cooler or whatever. But this story, it's like, oh no, that's like some real stuff that shaped who I am today. And it's vulnerable to be like, yeah, like I literally got a message from my soul before I said I do. I didn't trust myself. But the thing is, what it's going to do, that story specifically, and then I'll break out down a story that I just helped a client with so you can see the differences. That story is going to resonate with people who are in a relationship that they know they shouldn't be in. It's going to resonate with people who have symptoms of disease, who are not listening to their intuition, who are squashing it down. It's going to get them to be like curious about, oh, am I living in alignment or out of alignment? It's going to resonate with people who have anxiety, who have depression, autoimmune. I said I had 4 autoimmune diseases. I healed myself of all of that in 3 months from doing this inner work. It's going to resonate with so many different people. And it's also going to resonate with people who are friends with those people who are like, oh yeah, Sally, her body's shutting down. Like, oh, I think maybe she needs to read this book. So it's like all of these levels. And then also it's like, I'm sharing something that, doesn't make me look good, but it shows my integrity of like, hey, I'm transparent. This is who I am. This is my past. And I'm giving that to people so that they can learn something about themselves. Whereas if I were just to say, this is what a lot of people do when they're speaking from stage or on podcasts, is they'll be like, oh yeah, I married someone, it was abusive, or it was toxic, what does that mean? Like bring us into the experience. It's like, it was toxic, I got sick, and, next. It's like, what? And it's like, oh, now I'm a relationship coach or I'm an alignment coach. It's like, I didn't learn anything from that. I don't really trust you because you're not really sharing what happened. So story invites people into your world, but it actually invites them into their own world, because as I'm telling the story, most people aren't actually thinking about myself. They're thinking about themselves. Does that make sense?
Totally. I love that so much. And it's so true. And, as I'm listening to you, even, though we know each other and we're in a group together, I'm feeling closer to you and more connected. And obviously I'm going to remember more things, not only about your story, but about how you help people because of your story. And so it just works in so many different ways. Makes total sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So I was just in a call with someone before this, and she's in the health and wellness space. And she's like, I want to help people like know that their mindset is what creates their reality. And that's what she wanted to work on. I'm like, well, that's great, but like, let's work on the story that leads to who you are. And through the story, there were specific vulnerabilities that came up that I was like, this is the story, because you're going to connect with 10 different types of people in the audience, because they're going to feel like you're trustworthy because you're showing a part of yourself that they may not want to look at within themselves or have shame around. And from just sharing the story, you're going to help people transform their shame. And that's like such a beautiful gift of storytelling too.
Mm. And, I know from my own experience, I started with one story that I kept saying over and over and over for a good 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then had a big, business transformation, business sort of crisis, personal crisis, and then have now, a lot more recently started sharing that story, only when I was in a place to feel like I could tell it. So, what I'm trying to ask here is like, how do you know if you're ready to share your story, or even if you're ready to have a new story? Like, you've been through something new, you've gone through a pivot, you now maybe want to, like, is it when you want to connect with a new audience? Like, how do you know what story to tell, and also when to move on from the original story?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So, when I first started telling this story that I shared with you at the beginning of this conversation, I was like, I am so over that. I was so over it. I was like, I am so over my ex husband. That was so 7 years ago. I've evolved so much.
Yeah.
How you can find the right story is it's like, what are the pivotal moments that have made you who you are? And why are you the way that you are? So if we go back to specific pivotal moments in your life, there's probably like 5 key moments. And based on what the data is, it's like, well, what is the story that I don't want to tell? Usually the story that we don't want to tell is the story that we should tell. And I say we should tell because it's the most impactful. It's going to get us to grow the most, go to our edge, and also step into another level of leadership and embodiment. But also it's going to just be the most impactful because more people are going to connect with you. So that old story that you told might have been great for that version of you, but this new story of like your pivot and vulnerability and all of that, you've healed through it to a certain degree. Now you feel called to share it. So knowing what story to tell is based on who your audience is, what you're selling, what you're inviting people into. The reason I tell that story specifically is because my background work is in healing, trauma, and all of that, waking up. And now I help people with story and stages and getting their message out there. But if I was doing something totally different, that's not even related to anything in transformation, that might not be the right story for me anymore, right? So it's really just about who is your ideal client? What are they struggling with? But also at the same time, totally forgetting that and just being authentic. What is a story that shows my character and shows that I've gone through something real? And how can I share that and then connect it to the message of what I do? So I don't know if that fully answered your question. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I'm thinking about that as you're saying it, that there's actually a time and place for me to share the original story still, because it's all of what I still believe in. The
Mhm.
original story is like moving to London on a whim, blah, 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 not going to grad school, starting my business. There's a lot of nuggets in there that I know people love and they really latch onto and they see themselves in. And that's perfect for one audience. And then if I'm looking to reach a different audience or even talk about some of the money mindset stuff, then I can talk about everything I went through over the last few years with having to rebuild and losing and
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. And so I think like kind of picking and choosing, but they all have similar themes and really speak to my character and what I want to convey and the impact I want to have in the world.
I love that. And the main thing is you can have, like, I can do a talk, but I have many different stories that I can plug in that give it a totally different feel than a talk I did where it's the same content, but different stories. So you can use stories anywhere and everywhere. And you can go back to that story when you feel called. But I want to hear your stories now. I'm like, oh, you went to London, you didn't go to grad school. Like, that's like perfect for the person who needs to step into their dream life. That's like, I don't really want to go to grad school. My parents do, but like that's perfect for someone who's like needs to bet on themselves fully and trust and listen to their intuition. So I love that already.
Exactly. Yeah. I was literally on the way there and turned the car around. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's pretty intense.
That's
And I'm
amazing.
curious to know, like, when do you know if you're ready to share your story? Because for example, when I went through my business crisis, we had a huge like financial loss. I ended up being sued by American Express, like holding a 6-week-old baby in my arms.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so like I just started sharing that story because part of me was like, I don't want to share this. Like this makes me look terrible, like you said, to your point. But I knew that it's really important. It's powerful for people to hear. There are people who can relate to that. But equally, like I teach a lot about money mindset. I teach about wealth, all the things. And so my mind was like, my ego is like, people are going to think I don't know what I'm doing or like they can't trust me anymore. And so how do you kind of move through that? Or like, how do you know when you're ready to share something that is really vulnerable and potentially might not shed the best light on who you are, or at least that's what you think might happen?
Yeah. So usually what we think, the opposite is true. So that actually makes you more trustworthy because your ideal client potentially is going through a money crisis and they have a lot of shame around it. They don't feel comfortable talking to anyone about it and they're pretending like everything's okay. Maybe they're at the grocery store and they're buying bananas and a couple other things, I don't know, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I hit my limit for the day. How could I end up here? How did I get here?" So your story is actually, again, releasing the shame, giving them permission to trust you with that vulnerability, but also like, hey, this was me then, and this is what I learned from it, and this is me now. I think that transformation is really key. Sometimes what I see on the internet, because we've gone through this vulnerability movement, I feel like a lot of people are using their audience, which I would never purchase from someone who's doing this. They're using their audience as their therapist. And they're like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And I understand vulnerability is powerful, but I also think it's important when you are speaking from stage or, really putting a message out there that you have done some work on it so that you're not just, emotionally vomiting on people. So how you know if you're ready to share the story is you've learned something from it, you've made some changes in your life. It's still going to feel risky. I will say that almost every single person that I do story sessions with or that are in my program where we work on story and stage work cry or are going through some sort of big transformation. It's so normal because we're here to create a change in the world. So of course we're going to go through these moments of like, oh my gosh, well, I'm teaching on money and I was being sued by this company, or I'm teaching on intuition and I didn't listen to it and I put a ring on my finger. Like, what? We have to go through that. And I think it actually just makes us more trustworthy. So I love that question.
Thank you for explaining that. So if you're, I know you do these incredible sessions and everyone can go and look at your website and follow you and sign up. I know you even have a quiz, which I took. It was super powerful. And even, I think it was like 6 questions or something. And I was like, oh, wow, I've got some things to work on. So everyone should definitely take that. But if someone's looking to craft their story, whether it's to share on a stage or on a podcast, what do they start with? And I know we've kind of touched on that, but is there like some sort of framework, or do we need to hit like 5 key areas of the story? I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So the first thing that I do when I'm working with people is I am super intuitive and I actually get visions of people's lives. So this is where my intuition comes and I'm like, oh, great. I'm super intuitive, but this is helpful. So usually when I'm in someone's space, I will see a scene that I'm like, there's a story here. This is like your front gate story, the first story that people need to hear from you in order for you to XYZ in your business. But as far as like on your own listening, like how do you start to tap into what your story is? I would look at what are the most life-changing moments that you've had in your life that have shaped who you are today. And what is a story or a moment in time that you may have some shame or some discomfort around, or if you were to share that story, your mom would probably judge you, your neighbors totally would, and it feels a little risky. Usually that's the story that I would encourage people to lean into. Any good story, we have to go into the details. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people on podcasts and stages who are not memorable or aren't making an impact or profitable with their work is they're on the surface. They're like, I got married, I got sick, I got divorced, now I help this. It's like kind of a list. It's kind of like walking on the surface. Whereas a really good story, you bring people into a scene. You bring them into a moment in time that they can see, feel, and like they're in it with you. So for me, in my story, I'm like, I'm putting my fingers through my hair. I'm in my kitchen. So in your mind, if you're listening or you're watching, you're seeing me put my fingers through my hair in my kitchen. So a good story brings you right into a scene where the audience or listener is like, what's going on? It's not like, hey, so once upon a time I was married. It's like, let's go right into the scene. And with any story, as far as your core story, because there's different types of story. There's your main story that brings people in and gets people to know, like, and trust you. And then there's teaching stories that really get points across. But essentially, we want to bring people into the situation. We want to know what the pivotal moments are. Sometimes we can bring pivotal moments together. We want people to be able to see, feel, and see themselves in it. And we want to get into the experience and remember it as we're speaking it. So as I was talking about walking down the aisle, as I'm saying it, I'm seeing myself walking down the aisle. So that's more of where the acting and the connection and some of the healing work comes in so that we can actually feel it again. Because there's nothing worse than hearing someone tell a story that they're totally disassociated from. And you're like, I don't trust that person. I don't know why. Are they lying to me? And that's what happens when we haven't mastered storytelling is energetically we're not embodied or we're not telling the full story or we're not bringing people in. And people can pick it up in the energetic field that we're hiding something. And then we're like, I don't know why people aren't buying my offer. I don't know why I'm not impactful. I don't know why I'm not this and that. It's because you haven't fully owned or healed parts of yourself, number one. Number two, you're not bringing people into the experience, or there's somewhere that you haven't gone, so you come across untrustworthy on the internet. And now more than ever, people don't trust people on the internet, which I understand.
So amazing. Thank you for describing that. And we've all felt that. We all know when we've, told our husband or our friend, I don't know what it is. There's just something that's off with that person, or I don't resonate with them, or whatever it may be. It's not aligned. And you hit the nail on the head. Like there's something you're either hiding or you haven't done the work. You haven't shown up authentically. And I love that that's work that you do with people. It's not just like getting on a stage and speaking in a way that's going to convert people to sales. It's like, no, what is your actual truth? And what do we need to process first in order to really convey that message and have more impact?
Thank you.
And it's so great that you see the vision. I always say, when I work with people on money mindset, I can tell really, really quickly within a minute what it is that's holding them back financially from going to the next level when it comes to the energetics piece. And it's super interesting, to have those, like whether it's a vision or just like an inner knowing around your clients. And I do find that that's hard to kind of convey to people. Like they don't understand, like, where is that coming from? And so, but I think it's so, so powerful when you're working with entrepreneurs and leaders to have that additional piece. It's not just like a strategy or something that's kind of like surface level. You're actually going within and tuning into them. And everyone has like this unique blueprint that you can see.
I love that. And also what I love about what you just said is because you've been through it, the money mindset piece, because you've had the ups, the down of the credit card company, it because you've been there. And I think that's a big thing with leadership and coaching and mentoring. It's like, I would rather hire someone who's been through it than someone who's like, oh, I have a master's or I'm a doctor and blah, blah, blah. Like if you haven't actually lived it, I'm probably not going to trust you. I'm probably not going to feel you. I'm not going to want to work with you. And that's the difference between hiring a coach who's like, hey, I'm a financial advisor. Let me help you with your money mindset or whatever their title is versus like, hey, Emily, whoa, like did you hear about American Express tried to sue her? This woman is badass. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's totally different. And that's the power of your story and just like the energetics of it. And also where your intuition comes in because you've been in it. And that's such a gift.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that happened, I've been doing a lot of work around that. There are a lot of reasons why that happened that I can share in another episode, but equally, I knew that I was off track in the sense that I was selling things that were no longer aligned. Not that there was anything like sleazy involved with it, but I just knew that it was time to pivot and was just waiting and, just not following my intuition. And so there's always, life will do it for you. Life will bring something up
Totally.
to get you to move if you don't listen to that on your own accord. So
I love that. So true.
Yeah. So where can people find you online? Because this has been an incredible conversation. I know you're now working with clients on crafting their story. Tell us a little bit more about how people can work with you and where they find you.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. So it's just, I am Deidre Sirianni. So come follow me on Instagram. Let's strike up a conversation. I'd love to hear like what you're working on and how I can support you. And what I do mainly is I do one-to-one work with people, only a handful of people at a time. And I'll help you craft your story, your talk, and then also how to scale your message and your business through speaking. So being a guest on podcasts, being on stages, and turning those stages and those opportunities into tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, that's possible from 1 hour of speaking. I didn't believe this to be true. And a past version of me would have been like, this woman is lying, but it's actually possible to do that. And the type of impact we can have is really beautiful. So Instagram's a great place. And also I have an incredible program that's called Speak to Scale. That's a 6-month container where we work on all the things, your story, your talk, selling high ticket, and also getting on aligned podcasts and stages so that you can really get your message out there and help people. And it's a group container where you get to practice your story. So when you show up on a podcast or on stage, you're like, I got this. I got the feedback. I've worked through the emotional blocks. I've embodied this stuff. And the interesting thing that you said around trustworthiness, like you mentioned, Emily, is that, I don't know what it was about that person, but they didn't quite resonate, or I don't fully trust them. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're hiding anything big or that you're shady or you're, a drug dealer or whatever. It just means that you haven't fully embodied a part of you, and people are waking up to their intuition and are more careful now than ever before where they're spending their money and who they're hiring. So having a core story and doing that deep internal healing is really what makes people stand out than everyone else on the internet, and also dissolves your competition because your story attracts your ideal client, which is really cool. So thanks for asking that, Emily.
Amazing. I'm so excited for everyone to go find you and follow you. And then final lightning round question.
Yeah.
What is one way that people can create a life that's better than their dreams and far exceeds their wildest imagination?
Oh my gosh. Say yes before you're ready. And when you ask for something from God, the universe, whatever you believe in, and it shows up, stop waiting. Oh my gosh, stop waiting. I remember years ago being like, I want to be an international speaker. This is like 7 years ago. Literally got a phone call 3 days later about a stage I could speak on. Didn't know what I was going to talk about. Didn't even have my coaching business yet. The event was in like 2 or 3 days. And I said yes anyways. And that's opened up limitless possibilities. And I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't say yes. So say yes before you're ready. Stop getting in your own way. And if you ask for a sign, you get it, you better take some big action.
Oh, so good. 3 amazing answers. Well, thank you so much, Deidre. So grateful for you. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm excited for everyone to learn from you. I'm grateful to be able to learn from you and be connected. So thank you so much for your wisdom and vulnerability.
Thank you so much for having me. You're such an amazing podcast host, and I love being in your peer mastermind. It is so awesome. I just really appreciate you, and I'm really excited about what you're stepping into and what you're creating.
Thank you for listening to the I Heart My Life show. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 friends or post about it on social media using the hashtag I Heart My Life show. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It really does help us spread the movement far and wide. Remember, everything you desire is possible. Keep believing in your dreams and taking action.